you see, always make sure that you're bending in tune. And in this case, I'm bending up, like we just talked about, I'm bending up a whole step. So I'm going from 7 to 9. So I can always check the 9th fret, make sure that I'm bending up to the pitch that I want. What I see a lot of my students do is when we're jamming back and forth, and they'll go for a bend, and they don't quite hit the bend the way they want, they sort of withdraw, and then they wind up not wanting to do them again. So that's why it's so important that when you're doing bends that you play them with attitude and you play them with confidence. And, if you make a mistake, so what? So does everybody else. But the goal is when you go for those bends, make sure that you're attacking them and having them in the best pitch that you can so they feel good. And they sound good. That way you can throw them in anywhere. Like a lot of people seem like they're very apprehensive when it comes to bending, like they really got to set themselves up. You want to just be able to be jamming, and then all of a sudden you just power into a bend wherever it's going to be. We've already talked about the bend on the 3rd string, the 2nd string, and the 1st string. Those are all whole step bends. The next ones I want to show you, the first one is the half step bend. And this one is a really great one to try and practice. We're going to use this note, which we've talked about before, which is the 9th. Okay? So what we're doing is on the 1st string here, I'm going to play 5 and 8 like I normally do in minor pentatonic. But I'm going to add that 7, which, if you remember, is the 9th. And again, we're not concerned with what the 9th means. We're just understanding at this point that it really does fit in all of our situations in terms of improvisation. So when I go to that 7, I can play that 7th fret as a normal note. But the other really cool thing about it is I can go to it as a bend. So I'm bending from the 7 to the 8 now. That's a half step bend. So I've got my whole step bends, but now I've got this new half step bend. So I'm bending to this 8. So now I would just check. Okay, really great way I like to use that. I just played that was doing this. I might play the 5 and the 8, then I'm going to head over to the 7 and bend it back up to the 8. So it's like playing the 8 twice, but instead of being boring like that, I could go. So see, I'm combining whole step and half step bends, and again, playing them as confidently as I can. So there I went from a half step bend on 7 to a whole step bend on 8. Okay? So we can use those all over the place, but again, first just start by building it in your first position here, using the whole step bends and now this half step bend. Now remember, this half step bend also exists down on the 4th fret of the 3rd string. So I could be soloing down here. And a nice little melodic bend again. Now sometimes, like in this situation, you'll notice I'm using my 1st finger because I was set up in minor pentatonic here. So I backed up 1 fret to the 4. I'm still on my 1st finger. So now I'm going to do a bend with my 1st finger. Now I could bend this up, or I could pull down. Just whatever's more comfortable for me. Normally, when we're doing our whole step bends, we're always bending towards the ceiling. That way we can do those harmony bends and stuff that we've talked about already before. But in this case, because I'm on my 1st finger, I could push it up if it's comfortable, or I could pull it down. A lot of times I'll just pull it down if I'm playing. See? So I could combine those. You see? So again, those 9ths sound so nice because they make everything sound so much more melodic, because we've now implemented a half step for the first time pentatonically. We've got this half step that we can use. But as a result of that, now we can also have half step bends. So you want to remember that. So we've got our whole step, we've got our half step bends, and then the other one I want to show you too is just making sure, this is all recapping of course, is our unison bends. So when we're doing our unison bends, for instance, I might do the normal bend on the 3rd string, but instead of just doing that, I'm going to grab the 2nd string 5th fret with my 1st finger. I've got these 2 fingers, my 3rd and my 2nd, on the 3rd string. They're clamped on, ready to go. And I'm going to pick both these strings, and that's called a unison bend. for that kind of sound. And again, basically what I'm doing is I'm bending it up until both notes become the same. Okay? And I'm just following the pentatonic scale, and I'm playing the pentatonic notes on the second string, and this third finger is just following along for the ride. See, I can just move up. So I can use those anytime I want to. Now, the other thing you're going to notice as I'm doing all of these, that I'm implementing different kinds of things like vibrato. Very seldom do I do a bend without adding vibrato, and you certainly can. When I've got them up in the air, like with this Unison bend, instead of just bending it up like that, I have a tendency of shaking it when I get to the top, like a vibrato. Okay, and we've already talked about vibrato, but vibrato is very much a catered thing. However you like to play it, it's the speed at which you create the vibrato, and the width at which you want to create your vibrato too. So when I do a bend, I'm adding that vibrato on top. So the whole point of this is just having control. As we've talked about before, when you play, you want to learn to really truly see everything, and you want to really understand those fundamental elements that go into moving across the guitar, playing single notes or soloing in this case. And then ultimately you want to be able to do these things with confidence. A lot of the players that you and I both listen to, they make mistakes as much as we do. The difference is that when you're playing with a lot of attitude or a lot of confidence, you can use those notes to your advantage. Even when they're out of tune, you can do different things with them. Or when you are playing, even if the note is wrong, you're playing with a certain kind of positivity and attitude in your playing to where people just accept it anyway. So it's really important to understand that when you play shy and timid, even if you're using all these techniques, but you're playing like you're scared somebody's going to hear you, it's going to sound that way. So when you go to grab the guitar and you go to play, you want to add all these elements together and play them confidently. And if there's something that you don't understand about what you're trying to do, that's what this DVD is all about, is going back, recapping that section, and then building it back up. So your playing isn't based off, a speed technique or a bend technique or a slide technique or a melody technique. It's based off a little bit of everything. And then you can just enhance the ones that seem like they're more prominent in your playing, or you want them to be more prominent in your playing. That's the most important thing.